All right. It is what time? 5:38. Stephanie, if you're ready, would we do a roll call right now?
Commissioner Dillard,
Here.
Commissioner Merritt,
Here.
Commissioner Johnson,
Here.
Commissioner Novus,
Here.
Commissioner Krebs,
Here.
and Commissioner Gathaba.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Reading of the land acknowledgement. We meet today in the community of Iowa City, which now occupies the homelands of Native American nations to whom we owe our commitment and dedication. The area of Iowa City was within the homelands of the Iowa, Meskwaki, and Sauk, and because history is complex and time goes far back beyond memory, we also acknowledge the ancient connections of many other indigenous peoples here. The history of broken treaties and forced removal that dispossessed indigenous peoples of their homelands was and is an act of colonization and genocide that we cannot erase. We implore the Iowa City community to commit to understanding and addressing these injustices as we work toward equity, restoration, and reparations.
Thank you. So next is public comments. Before we do public comments, I want to first thank everyone who's in the room with us who is not a facilitator or a commissioner. We really are so excited to kick off this next iteration of our commission with these trainings. I also want to let everyone know, just to note, that this is a training for the commissioners put on by our facilitators. So we are only going to have public comment at the beginning and then at the end. We just want to let everyone know that we do value everyone's opinion, but because this is a training for us, we're going to have the comments before and after. But just know, in future events, we're going to be more open and having more people being able to discuss at this time. So if there's anyone in the public, online, or in person that would like to say anything, please go ahead now. Is there anyone online?
Participants. And go to attendees. See if anybody's raising a hand.
I don't see any hands raised. And is there anyone in the public at this time in this room that would like to speak before we start our training? Okay. So the next is introductions. I'm going to turn this over to Stephanie.
We share this.
Thank you, Chair. I don't know if I'm going to sit or stand the whole time, but right now I feel like standing, so that is what I do. Good evening. I am Dr. Stephanie Rose Spalding with the Mary Hoke Foundation, which encompasses a number of partners that are present here today. Think Peace, Truth Telling Project, Truth and Conciliation Commission, and we are so humbled and honored to be in space with each of you for the work that you all are doing and how we are collectively addressing concerns that have been on the minds, hearts, spirits of people for centuries. We do not take this work lightly. I know this is not necessarily an agenda item, but I do want all of our facilitating partners to have the space to introduce themselves. And because it's not necessarily an agenda item, I also want to say that for introductions, in terms of like timing and what schedule looks like, I want to say that people of spirit move by spirit, and that hours, minutes, seconds, in terms of time, are constructs that often exist outside of people who move by spirit. So while we are scheduled to be here to 9 o'clock, please know that things may shift and flow because we are people of spirit. So with that, I am going to let our partners introduce themselves. I'll pass the mic. I'll start all the way to my furthest to the left.
Thank you, Stephanie.
My name is Dr. Melinda Salazar. I am honored and humbled and thrilled to be here with all of you. I am one of the co-directors of the Truth Telling Project, partners with Think Peace Learning, Learning Hub. I'm forgetting a word in that, Think Peace, and co-director with my partner, David Ragland, with whom I will share the mic.
Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm Dr. Dave Ragland and one of the co-founders and co-executive directors of the Truth Telling Project, also faculty at Harvard Divinity School. And it is such a pleasure to be here with you today and a pleasure to continue this work that I've been enjoying and had the pleasure to be a part of. And just naming how important what you all are doing here is for your community and really for the heart of this country.
Annie Tucker. I'm a community member here in Iowa City. I direct a nonprofit that oversees court-connected mediation programs and restorative justice work. And I'm really grateful for our community that we are at this point and that we have folks who have been involved in TRCs nationally and internationally coming to help us understand this process and help our commission understand the choices they have. So I'm really grateful to all of us for being here.
Hi, V. Fixmore Rise. My pronouns are they, them, and I'm the CEO and founder of ST Planning, local community and environmental planning firm, and have been having the honor of being a part of what is, I feel like, making history here in Iowa. So I'm really humbled to be here. I'm here to learn and listen and help guide as best I can. So thank you for having me.
Thank you, Vi. Hello, everyone. My name is Eduardo Gonzalez. I'm a sociologist, and I'm specialized in supporting truth commissions in different parts of the world in the last few years, most of my career, actually. And I'm very, very happy to be back in Iowa City. I visited here with Dave last year, right? And it's good to see that the community is making progress on discussing difficult issues. That is exactly what the ordinance, what the intention was when the commission was established. It was not to facilitate an easy conversation, but to facilitate a difficult conversation. And it's really an honor to support that process. Do we go around?
I'm Taka P relatives. I go by T. Medina. My mother, full-blood Sioux Indian, Santee Sioux, Dakota. My father from Mexico, a retired probation officer, 37 years. I work for an organization called SHIP, Siouxland Human Investment Partnerships, and I serve the Siouxland community as a Native American advocate, you name it, everywhere, the court system, juvenile detention. I've been running talking circles, prayer circles, and listening circles for, I hate to admit it, but close to 50 years. And so my path in life, our walk in life, you know, to me, Creator God already knew we was going to come together. That's how He works, and we never know what's going to happen. But that's what I say every day. Our relatives that we serve, we don't know, but they're walking around with a broken heart. Sometimes the heart shattered to pieces. Their spirit's broken and shattered. So the work we do, we're in a spiritual warfare with ourselves and with people we serve. So patience, understanding, respect for the different colors of mankind. We say matakwison. That means in my language we're all related, no matter where we come from. I'm going to pass the mic before I get going here.
Hello, my name's Danielle Wanati. Biwani Nedishis. Biwani is my Meskwaki name. I'm full-blooded Meskwaki from near Tama, Iowa. Both my parents are enrolled, and both my parents are alumni from the University of Iowa. One with a master's degree in social work, the other one with elementary education and bachelor's degree. So I've been taught by my parents, and I kind of been involved with the TRC like for a few years, just trying to help them out. And I'm a water protector. I'm also a runner. I'm a climber now. I do organize things like for communities. I'm a big advocate for the children and the youth because our elders cleared the path for us, and now we have to clear the path more for our future generations. because a rising tide raises all ships. And so this kind of means a lot to me because my dad promised to help this community whenever it asked for help. And so he died 2 years ago. So here I am trying to help and advocate for the Native Americans and all human race in this community. So I guess I'm more on the spiritual level. So if I tend to back off and be by myself, it's I'm praying or I sense something else. But it's all in good faith, and I'm glad you guys are all here, and I can't wait to work with all of you guys and hear what you guys all have to say. We say Jaga Nagmenagwe, that means all my relations.
Hi, everyone. Not doctor or anything, but my name is Lois Grace. I work with Think Peace, and outside of that work, I work on the board for the Iowa Youth Foster Council, where we basically tackle legislatives in the state of Iowa that have to do with foster youth, and I'm just happy to be doing work here with you guys.
I'm Mark Priest. I'm a human rights commissioner here in Iowa City. I'm a retired Christian pastor. Part of my life is the lament of what colonialism has done to this land.
All right, so thank you again for inviting us into your home, into your lives, into your spirit, your destinies, and we are honored again to be present with you. And in that, I just want to say, especially for those who are online, I am not texting on my phone. I am monitoring time and also using internet notes, those kind of things, technology, that situation, but I am not disconnected. With that said, we want to recognize that this work is encompassing of so many things. It is, of course, head work. There are a lot of people who study this, research, academically engage, theoretically pontificate on truth commissions and healing and reconciliation. But for us, it is also heart work. So it is not just something that we do in textbooks or write about. It is really what we embody. It is what we live through. It is what we hope to bequeath unto those that come after us. So with that said, before we even move any further, I ask that we could take a minute to center ourselves. And I hope that, so part of this training, you will have things that are written on paper. You'll have people do presentations. But I hope that we are very cognizant of how we engage this work also in the body when we gather. It may not be, take a note of this and do this, but it is extremely intentional that we are centering ourselves. And as you, as commissioners, move forward in this, we hope that it is a practice that you do when you gather together, but also something that you adopt for yourselves because it is heart work. You will not leave this truth commission. You will not leave the work of reconciliation in this room. It will go with you home. It will be with you on your jobs. It will meet you at the grocery store. It will be at the gas station. So knowing that you are grounded and centered for yourselves and for each other is extremely intentional. So at this moment, I ask that we just take some time to do this for ourselves. However you are, in whatever position that you might be, if we could all plant our feet on this soil, on this ground, if we could all just, whatever level of comfort that you may be, either in closing your eyes or looking downward or focusing in on some particular spot, but to again rest your mind, feel yourself in this room, present in the chair that you are sitting in. If you could feel the earth beneath you, even though we are not outside on the ground, but if we could just reflect and be mindful that there is soil upon which this building is built. There is land and people's lives, ancestors, relatives are in this soil that has gotten us to this place that we articulate now as Iowa City, but it has many names. If you can inhale deeply and exhale, inhaling again to remind yourself you have breath in your body. And as you exhale all the things that came with today, to know that it is a gift. It is a blessing to be mindful of your breath and your breathing. If it is shallow, please attempt to breathe deeper. To feel where tension is in your bodies. And be gracious unto yourself to let go of what is releasable. And whenever you are ready, you can open your eyes, lift your eyes, reconnect with the people who are in this circle with you. And to honor that we are in this circle together. Many voluntarily, but still divinely by purpose and commitment that you all chose one another to walk this path together. I know setting intentions and expectations and methods of engagement for this work is an absolute necessity. For those of us who are present here, and as you carry out this work, there's a handout by Dr. Christina Jimenez and Dr. Dina Samuels. And while they are not the inventors, they are the authors of this particular handout. But it walks us through guidelines for community engagement. Whether you are in a meeting for the commission yourselves, or if you are at home, if you are gathered where any other bodies of people are, when it's more than one person, we have all been in situations where our spirits have been crushed because because someone failed our expectations. Am I making that up? I'm also a preacher, so I do a whole lot of call and response. So you have been in experiences where your expectations have been crushed. Am I right or wrong? You're right. And part of the crushed expectations is because we did not communicate what we expected of others, of ourselves. And so as we think about this work, as we are engaging one another for the next few days, I ask that we think about these guidelines for community engagement and some of the agreements that are listed here. These don't have to be your agreements. You can always add to the agreements. But articulating for one another is going to be crucial for gathering people who are hurt and who need and are searching for healing. As clearly as we can say what we expect of each other is going to be a benefit for one another. So for those who are not online, I am just going to read some of the things that are here again, and in hopes that those of us who are gathered today find this to be. But if not, please let me know if these expectations are too much or insufficient. But agreeing to respect one another, honoring that our experiences are not the same and our differences of perspective exist, and that we can agree to disagree, even when we experience the same thing. How many of you have heard the parable of the elephant and the blind people? Depending on where you touch the elephant, you would describe it the way that you would describe it. So wherever you sit, even if you experience police violence or encounters with law enforcement, encounters with each other, you will experience it differently. It doesn't make one's experience either less or worse in value. Remembering basic courtesies and interactions, to try not to speak over one another, to articulate from I perspective, my perspective, to not speak to someone else's truth, to take responsibility and accountability for what we do share, what we do say, how we do say it. My mother used to tell me all the time, it's not always what you say, it is how you say it. And as I've learned in spiritual practice, just because you are right does not make you righteous. So again, please, and if there are things that we need to add to these guidelines for engagement, please share it with the group. Can anybody think of anything immediately? Yes. Just because we have people online.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. One that I think of often, especially in places that can be very tense, is that harm is going to happen, and we can agree that when harm happens, how will we act? How will we call that in? How will we name it? One way that I've seen is if something harmful happens, somebody says pause. And then we know something happened, but we may not know what. And so then it's sort of up to the person who is harmed to maybe talk to, could step out. We would have to figure out what would that look like, and then address it so that it doesn't just kind of fly under the radar, or we have to talk about it later. or maybe we agree to talk about it later. But I guess what I'm trying to say is just understanding that harm can and may happen, and how would we like to handle that, I think is helpful.
All right, well, pause, because I'm feeling some harm. I'm nervous as an Indigenous person to be talking with people that are preaching or have a preaching mentality, because Christianity is a very difficult thing for us to deal with as Indigenous people. And so I hope that's not something that like sneaks into this process and becomes something that helps like lead the way. And then I feel harmed because I don't feel like there was a lot of thought put into like us coming here, spending our time to do this without being paid. You know, this is black and brown labor that's going unpaid. We volunteered for this I've been in this now for 2 years and a few months. And, you know, I just wish that we would have like had more thought put into like, you know, comfort for people that are going to be here for 3 hours. And not just providing everybody with like a half a sandwich as well. So like, you know, tables and maybe a more substantial meal because people are here from 4 hours, right? Yeah, 5 to 9. So just some thoughts there. I think that's why I'm feeling like when I walked in, I could just feel something, and I just wanted to let everybody know that.
This is Commissioner Wangui talking for the record. What I want to add, and I began with it when I joined this work in April 2021. As we keep moving, Stephanie has called it hard work. For me, I think of the trauma some of us are coming in with. For myself, I'm bringing traumas all the way from my maternal grandma's parent, all the way from 1847, when Vasco da Gama landed in Malindi off the coast of Kenya. So I carry all that white colonial trauma passed down all the way, and then finding it in Iowa City. So I began there, and what I would want to add to our list, because I said it at the beginning, to be aware those traumas are there, and they keep being opened as we do this work. I do remember when I said that, I do remember one of our commissioners, she's a lawyer, Daphne, she responded that people know that coming in. Yes, we are aware, but it doesn't mean that it's not painful. It's painful. And my question was, and that time I was directing it to the city, as somebody who researches this field, ethically, when you go to the field and you're researching, you're dealing with people, it's ethical to take responsibility, or as much as you're able to, for any potential or any harm that may arise. So my question to the city then was, what are we doing as far as the mental health of those of us who are the point people, at this point, the facilitators and the commissioners and the city, for ourselves who are the point people, and for those, by participating, we are reopening wounds and probably new wounds. What are we doing mentally to be responsible and to be ethical. So that's the question I want to add on to the guidelines. What are we doing? Because so far, I haven't provided an answer myself, and we really haven't provided an answer of that to ourselves. But we do know, at least I do know, and we voiced that we are on the right side of history right now as we do this work. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for your voice, your labor, your commitment. And Eduardo is going to later get more in depth into this. But we also want you all to know we are here because of you, because you are Iowa City. And for every person who enters into this room, into the Zoom space, they enter with the first words being, the city council has established the true and to carry out restorative justice through the collection of testimony and public hearings. With such work to include a recommendation to the council of a plan for dedicating and or renaming public spaces and or rights of way in honor of the Black Lives Movement. We are not, and I just want to iterate as much as possible, we are not your leaders. We are not, you don't even answer to us. We are accomplices alongside you to help empower you for the work that you and your community desire to do. And I hope that helps in the framing of how we can support you to live in the power and authority that you have, and how whatever meeting you have is ran, how whatever hearing you have is conducted, outside of us assisting other communities living this work in our own spaces of trauma. We are not your authorities. So whatever you need every day while we are in training and as you move forward, this is a space and opportunity for you to sit in your power and to honor and recognize and know, again, as we come to and are talking about why this commission exists, why do memorials and monuments and truth commissions exist, period, it is because harm is present. And somebody's desire to address, redress, and reconcile that harm. So again, as we move forward in this work, please help us help you to walk in your power as commissioners. This is not an employment. This is not it is not a white dominant hierarchical structure. That's the best way I can put it. But we are alongside the work that you are doing. And so with that, I am gonna, absolutely. Well, actually, I was getting ready to turn it over to you all for your I was 2 minutes on my time.
Well, I just wanted to model some of the things that we had talked about. So we had talked about adding to the guidelines using pause when harm happens, and so I just wanted to model that and let Sakawas know that I've added to our guidelines, refraining from using Christianity as a guide for our work because it's harmful to Indigenous people in the room as well as others. Just want to put that out there. And then also to address the comfort of commissioners in future sessions. So I just wanted you to know that that's in here. Yeah, absolutely. So great. Well, so we wanted to provide just a few tools for this work. And as we've talked about, there's a lot of work to be done. And so as facilitators, really focusing on healing and harm that comes up, one thing that we might just start with was when anxiety and discomfort comes up, kind of walking through what are the things that you go to? How do you handle anxiety and discomfort when it comes up? And so that then we could talk about how we can help each other and ourselves, because the work is always constant, right? So this is not just like us talking at you, actually. This is a moment where we have provided some notebooks, and if you don't have one, please let us know. Sometimes it's just, so this is a writing exercise, I guess. So did everybody get a notebook, or do you need one? You probably have one, but if you don't, we got some really fancy, no, they're not fancy, they're from Staples, but, and some pens. So if you need one, please, and anybody can do this, really. But what I'd like to do is just to take a few minutes. Yeah, please. And this is just gonna be kind of a stream of consciousness right for 3 minutes. And what I'd like you to do is just think about what actions you take, what are the patterns, how do you handle anxiety or discomfort when it comes up? What are the things that you go to that maybe serve you well or maybe don't serve you well? So this is for yourself. You, at the end, could share it or not. So I'm gonna just give it 3 minutes. Is everybody kind of clear on what we're doing? So the prompt is really, how do you handle anxiety and discomfort? Whether that is, the things that aren't helpful or the things that are helpful. And I'm just gonna give you about 3 minutes. Normally I have really cool music right now, but I don't, so. It's all right, it's just gonna be a few minutes. Anybody in the audience is also welcome to practice. Okay, if you could just wrap up your thoughts there. If we had more time, we'd do another round. But I just want you to kind of look at what you've written and circle a few things that stand out for you. Maybe there's a pattern there. Maybe there's something that you know is a go-to for you. And so really asking yourself, looking at what's in front of you, what are the patterns that are not helpful in this space? What are those tools that you choose when you are feeling uncomfortable? What are the ones that stand out for you? And if anybody would like to share, they certainly can. Yeah.
I just want to offer my appreciation for what has come so far. And I was writing, I was just concerned about the last interaction, particularly like closing off one approach to spirituality. And given how Black communities have taken, and BIPOC communities have taken Christianity, and it predates European colonization in Africa, and many communities in this community draw on it as strength. So how do we interrogate a little bit more before closing off? So just a thought.
Just real quick here. For us as natives, if we reflect back and, now I tease around, so I'm the double OG. That means the old great grandpa. So I've been around so many years, I try to build bridges. But yet at the same time, if we look at Native history, I'm not going to give you a history lesson here, but we go back to the atrocities that in the name of God, the Catholics did to our relatives, rape, emotional, spiritual abuse, physical abuse, and we've overcome that. And so when we look at that, I preach my own self, but I preach in my native ways. I'm not a preacher per se, but relatives in our way of life, they seem to call upon me when there's a need for prayer. I take care of funerals. And so in that way, I guess Creator God put me where I want to be. So reflecting back here, what I wrote down here, when I get upset, I pray. We use cedar, sage, sweetgrass, and tobacco. That's right here. Cedar, sage, sweetgrass, and tobacco. So I'll light some sage, and I'll say a prayer, offer it up to Creator. We use tobacco. I don't smoke, but I always got tobacco. So when we light that tobacco and we inhale it and we let it out, everything should leave us, our bitterness, jealousies, anger. That's how it should be. So I pray that all the bitterness I'm feeling at that moment, anger, that Creator God takes away. It's replaced by forgiveness and understanding. I have a lot of children, and so you don't hear me cuss around in a minute, boy. 'Cause I can do it, but it's like I love my family, I love my people, and so for me it goes back to that teachable moment right here, what we're expressing, and that's kind of my line lately, is that white is not always right. It's got to be a two-way street, not a one-way street. So we're here to learn from one another, looking at the choice we made. And my last closing thing here, I tell the people we cannot change the past, so don't beat yourself up over it. We can learn from it. It's that teachable moment every day. And so when people come to my office, I get my sage ready because they want prayer, because their hearts are hurting, their spirits are hurting, broken. And so we conduct that way. In the circle here, I'm loving the circle, because in the circle, we're all equal. No one's above the other. It's a continuous cycle. And so that's what I do. I light sage and I pray, and then if that don't work out, I'll go to the gym, do something. So that's how I do it.
Well, how do I handle anxiety and discomfort? I be quiet and reflect on if I did anything wrong, and I pray. I walk and pray, or I stand alone by myself and pray. If I can't walk, I sit still. I focus on my breathing. I cry if I have to release it. I think of my mom and dad and remember I am supposed to be here at this spot right now at this moment, I remember I am Meskwaki, and that all my ancestors went through in the past is for me to be here right now. Without all their struggles, I wouldn't be here right now. So we have to remember that everybody is indigenous from somewhere. Everybody practices some way of praying or something, whether it be Christianity, Catholic, anything, you know. I'm Meskwaki traditional. So that's how I handle my anxiety. And if I get quiet, I reflect, I go inward, and I try and figure out, okay, is there something that I did wrong to maybe harm somebody else? But then I also remember that I am in this space right now, and I was born to be here right now. So each one of you is like that also. You're meant to be here right now at this moment. I don't know, that's just how I usually run, but in these kind of settings, I can't run or walk away. I have to sit still and I have to stay here. So.
Just really quickly because of time, but just to go off of what Dave said about kind of interrogating, I think most of the time when I feel upset, I tend to close off, but I do a lot more self-interrogating, self-reflecting, and I had to do that just in the last 10 minutes here because I was feeling some feelings of tensions within and kind of like reflecting where these feelings are coming from and what these feelings are. And the conclusion that I came to was, like V said, there's going to be harm. This is bound to be painful. It's bound to be harmful. It's bound to hurt. We are the product of, we are BIPOC people that are having to pick up pieces of harms that have been done to us, and we're having to put in the work as we have for centuries. It is a cycle where harm is done to our communities, and then we have to come and fix our communities again. And upon falling on those feelings and realizing that it is coming from a place of why do we constantly have to be picking up things that we haven't messed up, things that are being done to us, and we have to come in as hurt people trying to fix our also hurt communities. I realized that in this room we are all here for the same common goal. It does not help to feel any kind of tension, and it just helps to be human. It helps to be just loving of everybody in this space and just allowing for this to be a space where everybody can process those feelings and just giving everybody so much space and so much grace, because like at the end of the day, we're all going to be hurt by this more than we came into. And yeah, just kind of like allowing for space for processing, allowing for space for just loving so that we aren't causing more harms to our own communities.
Yeah, so I thought I would respond to this issue of interrogating further the comments he made about Christianity. And so there's nothing wrong with people being Christian in this group, right? It's about Christianity leading the way. If we have a Christian-centered focus, that's what I wanted to make sure about, because I kind of felt that way at the beginning. And when we say we want to be loving and caring to each other, of course, but I can't feel loved or cared for in a circle where that would have been like kind of the elephant in the room, if you will. Because, that's like, I think T did a good job of explaining, like what's going on with us as Indigenous people and what it's done. Christianity is a colonizer religion. It is the colonizer religion. And we really need to dissect that and look further at it. Yes, there are Black and Brown communities that have picked it up, but not necessarily by choice over years. And Canada just approved, a $23 billion child welfare settlement for harms, that have been perpetuated by Christianity. We have been digging up children around residential schools very recently, and right now my reservation is digging as we speak. So I'm pretty raw about that right now. And, my background actually is in religious studies. I have a master's degree in it, and a focus on Native American religion and culture. So, I've studied very deeply the harms that this religion has perpetuated. So if we're going to talk about it, let's talk about it, academically. Let's talk about it from a point where people can stand like outside of the actual, religion and not feel like anybody's picking on anybody because of, what they might believe in. But to understand that there are people in this room that have been harmed. We have historical trauma from it. Our parents do, my grandparents, like everybody in my family does. So that's what I hope that helps clarify what I was talking about.
Yeah, I'm a bit confused because I was following the initial prompt, right? And I thought that the discussion ended up going in different directions. So the prompt I got was anxiety, how to deal with that. And I must say, I have a lot of anxiety. So, and when I was listening to you, I was thinking, wow, that's the ideal way to answer to it. But the real way it happens tends to be quite different, for myself at least. Right? What I recognize when I am upset, when I get anxious, is that I immediately close myself. You can even see it in my body language, right? I get like this, or just don't look at the room, and I immediately start reasoning and thinking of counter arguments. Why other people are wrong, right? And why is it that I am right in this particular situation? This is my reaction. This is what happens. And at that point, I have a choice to make. I engage with my counter argument, or I get silent. And usually I'm thinking, if I engage, this is going to escalate. And if it escalates, all of us are going to lose. So typically what I do is I bite my tongue. But when I bite my tongue, I just get, re-feeding the anxiety again. And so the reality is that in the moment anxiety occurs, it's quite difficult to find a solution. I mean, I would love to do, the things you're mentioning, like breathing, like grounding yourself, etc., but it's not that easy because you act in the moment. And you act in the moment because our mind is fast and is there to protect you. You react in an anxious way because you are feeling threatened by something that is there and can hurt you, right? So you want to finish that threat. Sometimes it happens that I feel that I am in the wrong. So to go out of that situation, I admit the wrong immediately, and I hope that that is going to end it. And that's my typical solution. All right, I was wrong. I will already say I'm wrong, so let's move out of this situation. And when I am right, I typically, what happens is, okay, I'm not going to insist on this. I am going to let it slide, right? So it gets complicated. And really, what has happened in the last few years, as I have kind of learned how to deal with it and recognizing the patterns you're talking about is, it's useful to have rules. So when you meet with other people, it's useful to have these engagement rules because if we kind of agree that that's what happens, it's going to help take the flow of the situation. It's good to have schedules, programs, agendas, to be flexible too, as we're trying to do. And it's good to have a lot of patience with others, right? I need to have patience with myself, with my anxiety, and with others too, right? If there is something wrong, most probably it's not that people want it to be wrong and to damage you in one way or another, particularly in a space like this. If there's something wrong or that wasn't to your expectations, probably there was some problem behind, right? And we will need to be patient about it. So those are the things I keep repeating to myself, but I must confess, it's not easy at all. It's not easy at all. I wish it would be easy, but I'm all the time processing these situations in this way.
Yeah, I appreciate everybody's honesty because it is difficult to handle anxiety when it comes up, and it comes up all the time, right? I think one area that I was hoping we could focus maybe more on is what is helpful, right? So we know that it happens. Having these types of, agreements when we come together and saying this is how we will handle things, knowing that harm will happen, that is one way to do it. As we've been talking about, taking those pauses, seeing and believing in the respectfulness that is needed in a space. There's other things too, such as being curious. Sometimes curiosity can actually diffuse the situation, even in the ways in which we engage with language. Instead of saying, well, I disagree, or I'm really curious. Like, how'd you get to that point? It can sort of diffuse some of that tension, whether that's within yourself or with others. Recognizing that the feeling is coming up, right? Like, that's kind of thing one. Like, oh, I'm actually. Lois Grace had mentioned, like, I'm feeling anxious, recognizing it is one of the things that immediately comes up. And then I think for everybody, it probably is different in terms of how you deal with it. There are just some things that could be helpful, finding your seat, breathing, having more patience for people, creating these kinds of guidelines. Those were the things that we wanted to kind of put forth as helpful tools for folks. Obviously, there's a lot more we could dig into, in terms of what is helpful, knowing that there's a lot of work to do, but we just wanted to kind of touch on it. We could spend hours actually digging into how do we hold each other accountable in meaningful, loving ways. But this is just to kind of get a taste of it, and also know that we can follow up on this. Like I said, I've been taking notes. We can share these things out. I want to thank everybody for sharing exactly how they are feeling or how they deal with these. We wanted it to be interactive, but we also know that can kind of stir things up. So, taking a breath and like kind of resetting is also beneficial, and perhaps in this moment to just kind of see how you're feeling, checking in with your own body. I know sometimes I know I'm nervous or anxious because I start to sweat. But with that, I also want to recognize that in this process, we have identified that there are harms, and we're trying to work through that. And I think that we're trying to do that in very respectful ways. So I think that that's kind of what's happening here. I just want to kind of name it that, we're talking about being with discomfort and anxiety, and we're also kind of managing some potential harm and trying to work through that. We haven't exactly said, in a sort of white supremacist way, like, this is how we're going to handle it when it comes up. We're just going to like whack-a-mole it or whatever we're going to do. So it's kind of a process. I just want to acknowledge that there has been talk about, how are we going to lead this space, and where religion has a place for that, knowing that there has been historic harm. And so I just want to name that. I'm not even necessarily saying I have a resolution for that, but this kind of concludes our portion of what are we doing when anxiety and discomfort come up. And I'm happy to talk with folks afterwards, but I know we have a lot to cover. Do people feel comfortable moving on from here? Yeah, please.
One idea could be to add a parking lot to the agreements. Like, so when something is said, if people have different perspectives, and if the conversation needs to continue, where does it continue at? Rather than saying, I understand that, and I hear this and I hear that, but an actual space so that there's a conversation. So maybe there's more clarity needed to understand the comments that are made.
Yeah, and another thing that comes to mind is that there are historical reasons why we manage anxiety in this way and why we manage conflict in this way. It's because we have been hurt and we have learned to defend ourselves. Whether you are a woman, whether you are poor, or you are a person of color in this country, whether you are queer, you have been the object of attacks and harm all your life. So obviously you learn to defend yourself. Otherwise you wouldn't be here, right? And I think, we have to recognize also that those patterns, as complicated as they are, had their function at some point. What happens is that we're not used to be in a space of trust, in a space of equality, in a space of love and appreciation. And we just bring our usual patterns to every space, even spaces of equality and friendship. That is a big problem. So to get there, I think that's the challenge here.
So just for the record, I'm going to be adding a parking lot, and that is in the guidelines there.
So part of what, just to reiterate what we are all experiencing is this is a learning space, right? Like we're all in a classroom, so to speak, if you know. And the meta part is as we are learning, we're doing. So for the commissioners, just to reiterate, even in the process of articulating these things, it's happening. And being mindful of what it's happening looks like as you are running Truth Commission, right? With potentially hundreds, if not thousands of, because we want as many people to participate as possible. Like, so what does it look like in the moment? Part of it looks like right now asking ourselves as a collective, because we walked in with an agreement, and an agreement meaning an agenda, quote unquote, and asking ourselves, do we want to keep going with what this is? Or do we need to make adjustments? According to the quote unquote schedule, it's 6:41 and we didn't have a 5-minute break. And somebody could be sitting like, where's my 5-minute break? You know? So that is the actual, that's the real question on the table. Do we want to try to recoup where we are in terms of time? Or are we in a space that we're like, no, how does this work out? What's not been said? There are a number of people in the space that have not said anything. Doesn't mean they aren't thinking, aren't feeling, aren't experiencing, aren't slicing and dicing what's happening in the spirit. So that is the real question. Do we want to take 5 minutes right now, or do we want to continue and deal with where we have come to?
I thought we weren't going to be constrained by time. Take the colonization out of it.
Exactly. That's why I'm asking of the collective. I don't want to make a unilateral decision. At this point, you all should have a little break, or we can keep going because you might feel like we are in it, so let's be in it.
I think we're all adults. We can judge whether or not we need to get up and move around or go to the restroom, and I don't think we need a break right now.
Others?
Others.
Awesome. Okay. All right. So, you're okay. All right. So, if we are going to keep moving forward, then Eduardo, I am going to turn it over to you, but to reiterate, not necessarily to rehash, but for the sake that we are in it, to recognize all of us walk in a room with our own notions, our own ideas, our own experiences, our own assumptions, our own realities. And as you move forward through this and conducting this for your community, because this Iowa City is your community, just because it's said is not going to necessarily be how it's received, right? And to be in a place where, to Eduardo's point, I was like, okay, maybe I should back off. But I also need to say, because I didn't use the language of Christian, I said I'm a preacher. And that comes with whatever notions that other people say. But if I can't be I, then why would I be here? That's like asking me to not be Stephanie. And I absolutely can't cut, slice, or dice that. And regardless of what that may or may not mean for somebody else, you wouldn't know if that comes with or how that comes, because I wouldn't tell you. Even if you said don't be that, there's no way to not be who I am, right? And many people could say or do or adjust or what have you in the same way that none of you could not be who you are. Now, is there an opportunity for the commission to interrogate white supremacy and Christianity together? It better be, because there's no way in the United States, in this place that is known as Iowa, that we can't. But to other points, there are people of spirit, of being, that the way they engage the divine predates white supremacy. White folks were not the inventors of, and to ask of any of us to not be who we are is the essence of white supremacy. Like, that is the practice, to not be who you are. We don't have to lead with dominant culture, but I can't ask V to not be V. I can't ask chair to not be chair, however that looks. But we have to have that space. Eduardo.
So I think I'm going to stay because I needed some movement. What?
Yeah, I just want to, I don't know if we, yeah, I just want to acknowledge, because I know it's really, I think, bringing up a lot for folks. And so we do have a parking lot. We do have a place where we can have conversation for more, but we also need people to feel like they can authentically show up. And I'm feeling like that is a bit at a crossroads. So I think that we just need to pause for a minute and just kind of breathe, to be honest. I just think we just, before we move on.
The microphone.
I did not.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
Yes, I did not.
I do not say that people can't, I don't want people to not be Christian in this room, but that's ridiculous. Sorry. People should come in and be authentically them. I just said I don't want Christianity to end up leading the way here. That was all I said. So, like, I want to be very careful about that, because if there are people with Christian backgrounds that are helping lead this project, I don't want to end up with that being like our, how we frame things, or like it might come through, and that's very triggering for someone like me and other Indigenous people. So that's all I want. That's all I had said. So this was not meant to make people feel like they can't be their authentic selves. So let's just clarify that. So is that?
Yeah, that's what I had in my notes.
Yeah.
It's more about Christianity not leading the space or the way that things move forward. And I think there's a lot of interrogation that's happening.
Yeah.
So I just, want to kind of breathe through that, because we need to get to the bottom of that before we move on.
Yeah, because there's no like white supremacist sentiment behind this telling people that they can't be their authentic selves. So.
I just want to say I'm really appreciative of all this, even though I am feeling a lot of anxiety and tension myself, because I don't like conflict. So as we're talking about how we are supposed to handle that, I am internally thinking about what I'm doing right now. And I do believe that, although I do agree, I understand that's not what you meant, this is going to come up eventually because of that. So I am trying to appreciate this conversation. I just wanted to put that out there.
Thank you. I'm cool moving on.
But also holding the space for later conversation without the same,
I have it in the parking lot, so it's not going away.
Can we not call it the parking lot?
Yeah.
That sounds like we're gonna.
What would you like to call it? What do you got? How about
The fighting
the
club.
prairie field?
yeah, as in like I just want the space to be like a safe space so we can have that conversation like this, like, hey, like, you know, where things are more productive, and this feels very productive. We're talking through things, and I'm sorry if my comment had caused any harm by any means.
Okay, all right. 5.
Okay. Thank you so much. Okay, so we're back, and let's see where my anxiety leads me. What we had in the program was something that I think would be very useful for the Commission, which is to examine the resolution that created the Commission. And I have put it in the screen, if Stephanie can give us a hand with that. So this resolution is important for a number of reasons. One is that it explains why is it that Iowa City, or more precisely, its City Council, decided to establish a Truth Commission, and what was expected of it. Another important reason is because it shows what are the 3 main objectives that the Commission has, and how is the Commission supposed to achieve those objectives. Another reason that I think is important is because it tells us what is the expected relation between the Commission, meaning the commissioners, the facilitators, and the public. And those are really important points, all of which are set in this resolution. So the first point in the resolution is that the Truth Commission was established because there was a social movement, because there were people in the streets, not just in Iowa City, but all over the country, during the period of outrage after the killing of George Floyd. And because there were people in the streets demanding something, Iowa thought that it would be useful to have a Truth and Reconciliation Commission. It's never said that this TRC is going to fix the problems of racial injustice in this country or in Iowa City. What it says is that the objective is, let me go to the screen, confronting and reckoning with the past. That's the point. It's not saying we're going to fix it. What we're going to do is, for starters, to recognize that the problem is there. And that problem is painful, systemic, persistent, and varied in Iowa City. That racial injustice has all those characteristics in the city in which we live. And that the only way to start facing that challenge is to look into it. And so the resolution also says the community must look comprehensively into its past and bear witness to the truth of racial injustice in order to provide the best possible foundation for moving into a future of equity based on healing and hope. And this, to me, is probably the most significant language in the preamble to the resolution, because this is really the theory of change that the Commission embodies. The idea is, in order to get to a different future, to a different reality in this community needs to look into its past and needs to bear witness to the reality of injustice. So the Truth Commission then is created to do that, to help the community go from hiding the reality of racial injustice, not speaking about the elephant in the room, and providing a platform so that the city and the community can talk about the reality, acknowledge that that reality exists, it's painful, it's harmful, it's traumatic, and on the basis of that, move forward. But only on the basis of that. Not ignoring the past, not ignoring the reality of injustice, but acknowledging that it is there. So then is that the commission is created. So that's the first thing. Why was it created? Because there was a theory of change, that we can do something about this injustice. And what we can do is acknowledge that it exists. If we don't acknowledge that it exists, nothing is going to change. That's the first point, which I think makes this document a particularly useful one. If we could go forward a little bit. There's another thing. Forward, please. Down, 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 down. All right, here it is. Point 6. The TRC shall be facilitated by an independent consultant funded by the city with expertise in group facilitation and human rights, and to the extent possible, experience with diversity, implicit bias, mediation, conflict resolution. And look at this. Until such time as the TRC concludes by the favorable vote of at least 3/4 of all members of the TRC, that facilitation is no longer needed. Meaning, yes, we are facilitators for the work of the Commission. That is our role. We are going to help the Commission organize its work so that it does that task that was set by the resolution. But we are here serving at the pleasure of the Commission. We are not, as Stephanie mentioned, we are not going to tell you what to do. You are going to tell us how do you want to do things. And we are going to help you do that, materialize your vision. And our role here is not eternal. We are here only until the Commission thinks that the Commission can do its work in its own way, with its own resources. So the facilitator, we are not here to perennize our role or to make ourselves indispensable. Exactly on the contrary. The city did not set the Commission to have facilitators. It set the Commission to have a Commission. And the facilitators help the Commission, but that's it. So that is our role here, and this is something important for the Commission and for the community to understand. That we are here to help and nothing more than that. And that it is ultimately the Commission which independently must decide what to do with that process of facilitation. And if we should continue, please, the other point that I think is very, very useful in this document is this section, section 11, the charges of the TRC. And if we could show it in the entire page, please. So it says, the Commission is going to do 3 things, and 3 things only. That is it. And it calls it fact-finding, truth-telling, and reconciliation. Those are the 3 things it needs to do. Fact-finding, truth-telling, and reconciliation. And very usefully, it tells us what is supposed to do under each of those 3 items. Fact-finding is collecting information, getting information. So we want to deal with racial injustice in Iowa City. Let's get information about it, the hard data about that particular injustice. Is that, for example, data about interactions of police with persons of color? Is that data about labor treatment and, of immigrants? Is that, for example, the health coverage for communities of color? Is that, for example, information about schools? What is it exactly? You need to decide what the focus of your research is going to be, but that is what fact-finding is. To find where is that racial injustice, where is that discrimination, so that you can show it and demonstrate it's there. It's not just anecdotal evidence that I may give, it's aggregated hard information that exists. The city does have that information. The organisms that work for the city do have that information. So the Commission has a mandate to look into that information, to compile it, and to put it together, hopefully, in a report. B, truth-telling. So this one is particularly useful too because it tells you a number of things that you could do. First one, provide multiple fora and creative opportunities for persons impacted and traumatized by racial injustice to share their stories, meaning you are the ones who are going to decide we will create a platform for people to talk about what happened to them. And those platforms are going to be diverse, varied. It can be a circle like this one, it can be a town hall, it can be a public hearing, it can be a theater play, it can be a music concert, you decide. But the important thing is a space, a platform, a safe place for people to talk about what they lived. And, right, people are supposed to be heard by fellow communities of color, a cross-section of the Iowa City community, decision makers, the university, etc. So it tells you we are going to organize those platforms, those spaces, to make sure that people are heard. So this second thing to do is to create a space for people to share their experiences. And very helpfully too, it tells you, you have to explore in what ways you want to do it. It's not telling you, do it in this way. It asks you to explore, to let your imagination go. So it can be through art, it can be through music, theater, workshops, rallies, other forms of congregation. And finally, it tells you, let's create a repository, an archive, so to speak, of all those platforms that we're going to create. So if we end up launching a theater play, a community gathering, etc., we are going to take minutes of everything. We're going to treasure the information we are receiving, the testimonies we are receiving, and we're going to have a repository. So when the commission is done with its work, in 10 years' time, in 20 years' time, people in the city will be able to go back and say, this is what the community said in that occasion. Have we made progress or not? So that is truth-telling. And finally, reconciliation. And then also, and I will finish here, also the resolution tells you what to do. And what it's saying is, reconciliation consists, for the purpose of the work of the commission, in several things. First of all, to make sure that there are spaces for direct conversation. So it's not saying reconciliation is, some magical moment by which we are all going to end up holding hands and singing Kumbaya. It's not saying that. It's saying it consists merely, for purposes of this commission, in creating opportunities for dialogue. Dialogue in which people are going to discuss how is it that they experience injustice, and they're going to be able to discuss that with the organizations, institutions that have responsibility on that. And it says, for example, police and protesters, landlords and tenants, students and teachers, patients and healthcare providers, business owners and staff. So it's not saying reconciliation is avoiding the difficult conversations. It's saying, on the contrary, reconciliation is facilitating those conversations. Creating a model that provides a structure for these conversations throughout the city. And what we have been exploring as facilitators is the idea of the healing circles as a possible model to do that. And something that I think is very, very useful, very important, is to recommend to the City Council institutional and policy reforms, new social practices, new expectations, new protocols, etc. Meaning, so all this is a practical effort. It's not a conversation club. Something is going to happen after this. We are going to get information, fact-finding, we're going to create platforms, truth-telling, and we're going to make concrete recommendations of what to change, reconciliation. So that is why I think the ordinance or the resolution is so important. Because it tells you why is it that the commission is created. It provides some sort of a map on how to change things. It tells you how are you going to do it in relation to facilitators that in the end respond to the commission, and the commission decides on that. And 3, it tells you in what areas the commission is going to do that work. Fact-finding, truth-telling, and reconciliation. So what I think we could do on the basis of this ordinance, when we digest this document, that is why we're here, is that we need to identify in each of those 3 areas what of all the possibilities, what activities within all the possibilities can be done concretely. Who in the commission can take responsibility to lead those activities? And what resources do we need to do that? So for example, in a series of conversations lately, functionaries, officials of the city have been saying, does the commission have a budget? Should the commission have a budget? And you're asking, well, how do we organize a budget? Well, the way to organize a budget is to decide. We have 3 great objectives. We are going to decide what activities each objective entails, and then we are going to identify what resources do we need to make sure that those activities happen. And in that way, we will get a budget. Right? So that is why this ordinance, this document is so critically important. Right? It really, the commission is really here because it is grounded on a decision by the city council. The city council wrote this and approved this. And it has been difficult, it has had ups and downs, it has had a number of discussions, conversations, but it is there. That is what the document says. It's not a shy document, it says the things that are going to be difficult to do, and it asks the commission to do it. And it provides the commission with certain resources. You're going to have facilitators, and if we can go up at the very beginning, it also says, at the very beginning, it says that the city also has the capacity and the decision to allocate funding to do this. So it says, the city council committed to allocate funds of $1 million during the present year, fiscal year, of course it's 2020, to support Resolution XYZ, which includes a variety of initiatives, among them the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. So it's saying the city is putting its money where its mouth is. Yes, this was from 2020, and it has been not very easy to create this, to establish this, but this is where we are now. And the city signified by passing this resolution that they did have the intention to dedicate funding, concrete resources to do this. This is not a gracious concession. This is not an act of magnanimity or generosity. It's a political decision by the leadership of the city to say, there are resources that we are going to make available for this. How much that is going to be, what exactly those resources are going to be, that depends on you, on how you guys design and organize a budget. So that's what I wanted to share and just show why is it that this particular document is quite useful. And what I was thinking is that perhaps what we could do is to open a conversation about the areas of work of the commission according to the document, or other points, whatever the group feels like discussing. Stephanie has prepared, for example, a glossary of terms that are very likely to appear during all this exercise. Right? What do we talk about when we are talking about reconciliation, when we're talking about justice, when we talk about truth commissions, indeed, right? What are those concepts? So that is probably also something that we could do at this moment. I don't know, Stephanie, how you want to proceed.
I think it's helpful, particularly in this moment, that that we do talk about, as commissioners, how you think about the resolution, because the resolution is what's guiding us. And even to the point of the budget, I know that in conversations with city manager and others, that it has come up, like what city council is responsible for, has mandated, and not at all to be funny, even to the point of they did not want to provide food tonight. Like, we feel your pain is what we're saying, is that the city council did not want to provide food tonight because they act as if you all did not have a budget. So we graciously stepped in because we're like, people coming from work. Like, you cannot have people not have anything. So it would be helpful as commissioners to hear from you what you think about this resolution and how it allows or disallows you to do the work that you signed up for.
This is Commissioner Lauren. One thing about the particular resolution and the one paragraph that talked about the $1 million, and it references another earlier resolution, and that other resolution is key to look at because it is there that it outlines what that $1 million is for, and it's one of those included but not limited to kind of situation, whereas yes, the TRC was part of that, but there are many other items that are listed that could be funded by that $1 million. So one of the things that I'm hoping to have a communication, at least with the city, is find out what other things have they talked about that they're thinking that they want to fund out of the other money that's above and beyond what the facilitator's contract has come up with. And I also do want to have communication with, I think it's Jeff in the, about, how, not just this commission, but all commissions, how do they operate and with certain kind of funds and that kind of thing. So there's talks going to be happening about that, just to kind of give an idea, because I've been given some different information from key person kind of thing that I just need to get more clarification so I can help, I guess, fill in with the commission, the TRC, as to what we can do.
Just to piggyback off of that, just so everyone else knows on the commission that I have been having conversations via Annie, and we did have a conversation with the city manager and other people this week, so some of those clarifications will be coming in the next coming weeks. But as far as what I think about this resolution, thank you, Eduardo, for bringing it back to our attention, bringing us back to what we started with, and just thinking about some of the questions we've had. How can we do some of these things that are going to cause harm to people in the public, in a public setting? I know that there's going to be some information coming out that really kind of holds our hand in how we can do that, because we are part of a city government, but I really would love for us to think outside the box of how we can make sure that we are uplifting those same people and limiting how much harm we're going to be causing at the same time, or mitigating is what I'm saying. Anyone else?
Just wanting to follow up on Eduardo's statement. The resolution is a guidepost for you all to keep coming back to if there is disagreement with the city council, by ordinance, by resolution, by like voted words. This is the decree that was oh no, so use it to your advantage, and to hold them accountable as council members in your community.
And I just want to say that it's not written in stone. If there's something that we want to change, there are methods to a process that we can try to initiate that. So just because it's a resolution that says these things, it does not mean a change cannot happen. It's just, you just have to follow the rules on how to do that, but it can happen, so.
According to the resolution, the council was supposed to be ended by a certain, but the process of change had to happen because things were delayed, right? So the process is there. But also knowing that in the history of truth and reconciliation commissions, there are multiple ways that communities come to this, which is why we have created a glossary. One, wanting to start and say that these are very, very distilled definitions, because this work has been going on for decades. This language has evolved over and over and over again. There are many contributors to the ideas that are before us, but we wanted to at least provide a common jumping point for all of us in the room, as well as for you all as commissioners, as we are thinking about these terms, thinking about these ideas. And so even truth commissions come about in multiple ways. They can come by executive decree. They can come by when political regimes are changing. They can come in community. They can come through legislation. So using your resolution is, like I said, your guidepost, and also thinking through what kind of reconciliation is happening. Is it transformative justice versus transitional justice? Is it, what is justice? What does equity look like? For many people in community, you all will go through this process and there will not be reconciliation for a lot of people in how they understand what reconciliation looks like. But to even know for yourselves, again, this is a starting point, and just in the interest, we don't have to go through these one by one, but for you all to have it together, you can refer back to it. You can add to this glossary, there are things that aren't in this. You all might sit and say, how do we define harm? How do we define trauma as a commission? Or we have a different understanding of what equity looks like, right? So again, the glossary is just a tool. We will put it in a shared folder for you all as commissioners that is adjustable, that you all can add comments to, that you can develop and grow it. But it is just, again, a place for you all to begin in a common language. Yeah. Any thoughts about what's in front of you, or anything that coming back from the break, from the resolution, anything to where we are in this moment, and thinking about, again, your power in this work? Okay. If not, I am going to turn it back to Dave and Eduardo, so we can look at mission and visions.
And I'm just curious, how about we take just 1 minute and everybody pick one definition to look at, and maybe say what feels good, what do you want to add? So maybe just 1 minute, we'll just look at one definition. let's give like a full minute, and then we'll pass the mic around.
Let's go in order. Okay, so should we go to the topic or we go to Melinda? You wanted to?
Any thoughts, comments? A term that you had some interest in or questions about? This is just a short moment to.
What exactly do you guys mean by interested in and questions about?
No, if you're like, I really don't understand this, or
Just to give reference.
okay. I think about justice this way.
I think it's a discussion that we have to
Sure.
dive in.
Right.
And maybe one session just looking at each one. Like you're saying, these are really big topics. But I appreciate the philosophy.
And I just turn your attention to the middle of the intro paragraph, just to underscore what Stephanie had said, that these terms are emergent, constantly evolving, and being shaped by the practice and work of truth-telling and reparations that are happening all over the country and the globe right now. So while the terms might appear to be fixed in print, it's a living document
I'll give it a few
based
minutes.
on your
So it
experiences.
doesn't come through, I'll come by you. How's that? Okay, thank you. It just came through. Okay.
I might add tokenization and romanticization to that, whitewashing as well, erasure, just a few terms that come to mind.
I know, right? And like we said, we will create a folder for commissioners so that you can have these documents electronically, manipulate what you need, and add. Yeah.
Mhm. Great.
In the future, are we able to get mics that we can just clip on to us and just click on and off rather than testing this around?
I would have to check. I don't know. I would have to check. I have no idea.
Well, the other thing to remember is we have 3 days here, so we can always revisit topics and issues as we begin to use them more, right? These particular concepts are, as the document says, open, right? It's evolving. Another thing that I think is important here, and I think you mentioned it, Melinda, when you read this section, is these concepts are evolving not just as a result of people thinking of them. They are evolving and they are changing because there are things happening in communities right now across the nation. Iowa City is not the only city, the only place that has created a truth commission in the United States in the last 3-4 years. Actually, by a count that we have done, it's over 40 communities, states, counties, cities that have created different institutions, some of which are called truth commissions, some of which are called reparation initiatives, some of which are called reconciliation initiatives, etc. And they are similar in a way, that is, they all deal with issues of racial justice, right? But they have different names. Now, the reality is all of those are actually happening, taking place. And that is going to have an effect on how do we think of these issues. And it's not just commissions. Think of movements to re-signify the markers of a city, take down monuments to hate or to white supremacy, replace them with other markers, with other memories. All that is also happening. So all that is going to have an effect and an impact in how we refer to these things. And here is where I want to get into the subject. This is happening in the United States also because it also happened in the world. This is not an issue, truth commissions, where the US has created or has invented something. On the contrary, truth commissions were actually established in what we sometimes call the global south. These are countries that have experienced the consequences of war, of violence, of injustice, of extractivism, of imperialism, and it is those countries that have established these institutions. One reason why we in the US have heard about truth commissions is because of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission of South Africa. Many people have heard about that commission, and that is a demonstration that these institutions were not established here. And one problem sometimes with the US is this notion of exceptionalism, right? That everything in the US is exceptional, different, and therefore this country doesn't need to learn anything from anyone else. And the reality is that the practice of truth commissions, the practice of reconciliation, is one glaring example of a particular point where, yes, there are openings here to learn from the rest of the world. Truth commissions that emerged in places like Latin America, in places like Africa, and have been examined here, studied here, and now are starting to be applied here. So how is it that they were created? How is it that they emerged, right? They were created in a very exceptional manner, meaning that when you think about justice, particularly justice after a lot of trauma, a lot of harm, talk about apartheid in South Africa, or civil wars and conflicts, or coup d'etats, or authoritarian rule. You are talking about thousands upon thousands of people killed, executed, persecuted, deported, etc. So in those situations, thinking about justice is very challenging, because really there is very little chance that that is going to be fixed by a court of law, by what we usually call justice, which is criminal justice. And that is why people started to think of other options, in addition to criminal law. You know, when you had something like World War II, you would think, well, how do you solve that injustice? Well, the Tribunal of Nuremberg was created, but in that tribunal, only 20 Nazis were tried. And of those 20, I think 14 were sentenced to different penalties, and a few were declared innocent. Right? So criminal justice is not going to be enough at all for these kind of purposes. That is why countries like South Africa, like Argentina, like Chile, my country of origin, Peru, decided that in addition to criminal justice where it is possible, against the worst perpetrators, we need to have something more flexible, more open, that does not depend on the prosecutors, on the DAs, on the lawyers to function. And that is where they invented truth commissions. So truth commissions are a space of justice, only not criminal, but restorative justice. A process of justice that it is not focused on the punishment to the particular perpetrator for this particular act, but on examining the entire pattern of harm, not just a particular individual act, but the entire pattern, and to give an opportunity to the survivors, to the victims, to talk and to be recognized. When you go to a court of law, and this country is fanatical about courts of law, in this country, courts of law are even spaces of entertainment. I have lost count of how many movies are there about trials or lawsuits or criminal justice in general, right? It's a genre, right? The judicial drama. We all love it. And when you think about that kind of space, you realize it is about the accused. It is not about the victim or the survivor. The justice system, what we call the justice system, the criminal justice system, is about the accused. And it's about a very intricate procedure that only specialists know. the lawyers who come up with an inventive formula, the prosecutor that negotiates, a plea, and they decide whether they're going to go for 7 years or 3 years or 20 years. It becomes a game, right? And so in that game, there is very little space for victims and survivors. They are supposed to be sitting there and looking at what's going on and what happens. But they don't have a first role into the decision-making of what's going to happen in this space. It's about the accused, the prosecutor, the defense, the judges, or the jury. It's not really about the victims and the survivors. So truth commissions are an attempt to shift that logic, that balance, towards the experiences of victims and survivors. So instead of having a discussion about a particular accused and the debate about what the accused did or did not do, is to bring the victims and the survivors to the forum and to have them talking about what happened. And elaborating a new narrative on the basis of what they said. So, for example, Canada, and I'm taking it because you mentioned the experience of the Indian residential schools. So in Canada, for over 100 years, the government, in alliance with Christian churches, established what they call the Indian residential schools, which were basically an attempt to delete, eradicate indigenous culture by a forcible appropriation, the forcible indoctrination of children. Taken out of their families, of their communities, they lost their names, they lost their language, their spirituality, etc. All right. So 100 and something years have passed. It is impossible to think of a criminal justice process against the perpetrators of that, because mostly they were dead when this issue came to the agenda in Canada. And it came to the agenda not because some particular perpetrator was found. It came to the agenda because the survivors came forward. And they started to talk about what had happened. And then, because they couldn't bring criminal trials against perpetrators who were old or deceased, they started to bring lawsuits against the government and against the churches. And when those lawsuits became so many that it was impossible to the criminal justice system to deal with those, then the government had to accept that there had to be a different solution. And they negotiated a solution between the Assembly of First Nations, the churches, and the government to create a truth commission and to pay reparation. And they accepted to pay about 4 billion Canadian dollars on reparations to about 80,000 survivors. And in addition to that, a truth commission. Because they said reparation, even reparation is not going to be enough. Even reparation is not going to be enough. Because people will want to talk about what they experienced. So a truth commission really is about the survivors, about the victims, however they want to define themselves. Victims, survivors, harmed persons, etc. And it is about them having the opportunity to speak about what happened and to be listened to and to be believed. Because this is the other thing, at least I'm thinking about my country. When the families of people who were killed during our internal conflict, 69,000 people killed, when the families came to talk about what the state had done or what other groups had done, people would say, well, probably it was his own comrades that killed him. Or probably this person disappeared because he went to another country. Or probably he was not disappeared by the army. Probably he was just having an affair with another woman and he abandoned his family. So victims, survivors are all the time being told that they are lying, that they're exaggerating, right? That all these stories about what supposedly happened are not true. They're exaggerating as individuals or as communities. It was not that bad, right? This recent discussion about whether slaves learned skills, right, during the period of bondage, right? So because people have been accused of lying or exaggerating, that is what the Truth Commission is there for. To have an opportunity, a safe and respectful space for people, for communities, for survivors to tell what happened to them. And that is what truth commissions are. What they have done in other countries is basically to open doors for sometimes thousands of people to come to give testimony, which is not legal testimony in the sense that it's before a prosecutor, but testimony about what happened. So it doesn't have all the formalities of a prosecution system. And to compile all that information, to have reports and documents that are not going to be erased, that become official, authoritative. The Truth Commission of Argentina, which said these are the thousands upon thousands of people disappeared in the military dictatorship in our country. The Truth Commission in South Africa indicating the damages, the harm caused by the apartheid system. The Truth Commission in my country saying we have 69,000 people and disappeared in the conflict between the 80s and the 2000s, right? So that is what they did, to establish the facts so that attacks against the victims and their credibility are not going to be acceptable in the future. And on the basis of that, hopefully, to have hard data, hard information that is going to guide policy. So we keep talking about what to do with abusive police, for example. Should it be reformed? Should it be dissolved? Should it be defunded? What do we do with that? Well, we cannot know that without knowing the information. In the US, as a country, for example, at this point it's impossible to find credible, reliable information about how many people are killed by police every year. It is very difficult to find out because of the disgregated, decentralized nature of police departments. There is not a national police, right? And so nobody really knows. There's no information about this kind of abuses that in a centralized manner. And in that way, obviously, it's going to be always very difficult. Probably the dispersion is a mechanism not to get the information and not to get changes, right? So, but a truth commission at the local level like this one can do that, can get the information at least about the practical possibilities in this place. One other important thing that I think I would be remiss if I don't mention. You are in an incredibly visible and by complete random chance occurrence, important place, Iowa. In a few months, this state, your state, is going to be probably a political circus. People from both parties, and not just both parties, and candidates and pre-candidates are going to be coming here and visiting each and every one of your counties. Right? Well, yeah, well, let's say it changes a bit, but still it's going to be very important. And I have found, always very fascinating and complicated, right, to understand how is it that the system works in that way, right? Because why do you start the political discussion about leading the country in a state with these particular demographic characteristics? Well, it so happens that in this particular cycle, in this particular state, with these particular demographics, you are creating an institution that is going to discuss about what usually is not discussed in those spaces. Racial injustice, inequity in the labor scenario, in education, in healthcare, etc. And so, this is the moment to say, Mr. Candidate, because usually it's Misters, no? XYZ, well, we in this community have started a discussion about this issue. And this is what we are identifying. What do you have to say about that? Or do you think that this is something that we should do in other states? Or do you think that this is something that you would do nationally? You end up being a president or a senator or whatever it is? This is incredibly important, incredibly strategic. And no one planned it that way. It just happened that a community in this particular state, the community of Iowa City, decided that it was important to look into these issues. And by deciding that, you are creating a platform that is useful for your community and hopefully could be useful for the country too, right? So I do think that there is a lot here to develop, and that is what we could probably start discussing tonight, right? On the basis of this ordinance that we have examined, we could develop a vision of what we want to do with this ordinance, with this commission, and we could start organizing strategically ourselves in terms of how are we going to deal with those three great tasks, with those activities, with those resources, with those opportunities of leadership. That's the big question here. I suppose there are going to be reactions. Otherwise, I've never been so clear. All right. Dave, you want to take over?
I mean, and what's so interesting is that, like, given that this is like one of the most important, I think, political moments happening, even though your state, Melinda, New Hampshire, is now going to be the first primary, I think what's interesting is that there's truth and reconciliation and reparations at the federal level, like being considered, where there's a bill called Truth, Racial Healing, and Transformation at the federal level, in addition to H.R. 40. And what's so additionally interesting is that you mentioned South Africa, and one of the groups that learned how to do this in the U.S. from South Africa was the Greensboro Truth Commission. It's considered the first Truth and Reconciliation Commission in the United States. And one of the things that I found about the Greensboro Truth Commission is that they were able to move the political needle and the social needle at a time when politics was extremely regressive, at a time when their communities weren't being supported. So I put up, can we show the link about Greensboro? Because I want us to get to mission and vision. To the original one, the first one.
This one?
Yep,
Okay.
this right here.
Let me share my screen here, sorry.
So while in Greensboro, while here in Iowa City, there's the resolution, right, to create this process. Similarly, Greensboro created their own declaration of intent, where they're essentially like, they took the legislation and they came in the direction that they wanted to go into. If you can scroll down a little bit to where it says 5 fundamental, and here they kind of, like, similar to the document that Stephanie created with the definitions, right here, let's leave her here. They came up with some 5 truths, right, to sort of center the way that they were thinking about this process for themselves. So, like, truth affirming dignity, truth acknowledging variety of gifts and talents from people, truths on how to expose policy, truths on to acknowledge distortion of race, gender, identity, constructs to pit each other against each other, truths to which to affirm the power of an informed, united, moral, determined people. So let's come out of there. So in addition to, like, learning from Greensboro, or Greensboro learning from South Africa, when we were in Ferguson, Missouri, we were thinking, how do we have a truth process when we can't necessarily get police to come to the table because they've infiltrated groups in St. Louis, and people are still being harmed, and there's ongoing litigation, there's ongoing investigations. And so what we decided as community members, we didn't have any legislation at all, we decided to come up with a community-driven process that really reached out and spoke to healing. Yep. And I'll just read the first paragraph right here. And I'm putting this up here so you know what's present, and so you know that these documents will also be in your folder. So this document expresses the intent of the Truth Telling Project to work with citizens and organizations in the Ferguson, Missouri area, along with a cross-section of national and international persons, to host, broadcast a series of hearings entitled The Truth Telling Initiative for Ferguson and Beyond. And I'm going to tell you that, maybe let's go to the next document, then I'll just say a little bit more commentary. And this is just like an overview of more detail that'll come later. Then we created a mandate. And the mandate, so the declaration was just saying, this is to the public what we intend to do. The mandate is, how do we justify what are we doing? Where does our authority come from? And number one, we grounded our authority in learning that we have from South Africa and the Truth Commission. And they came and validated our process, as did Bishop Tutu came and validated the process that was happening in Greensboro, as Bishop Tutu also validated the process that was happening in Ferguson. And then we named this particular mandate within a particular area, saying the murder of Mike Brown pushes us into doing a particular thing, into acknowledging that this is also rooted in more police violence, and that the death of these people require us to do A, B, and C, and D. So let's come out of that and maybe hit the lights again. So I just wanted to kind of point that out, to also name that while we were thinking about and learning from these processes internationally and other communities, we were able to define quite a bit ourselves. Stephanie, you had your hand up. Did you want to? Okay. And when we're thinking about where do we go from here, one of the questions is, how does this community go beyond what is on the resolution to figure out what are the specific focus of your commission, which is already to some extent there, like what's your vision, what's your mission, who are you speaking to, what specific areas, and then within that, because that speaks to how are you going to frame the 3 areas that is legally mandated within the resolution. For instance, fact-finding, truth-telling, and reconciliation. And then that's also going to structure the activities that you're doing, who are the accomplices that you're working with, who are the allies, what are the responses that you're going to have. So in thinking about the vision and the mission, you have Greensboro, for instance, who was thinking about a truth commission that was partly in response to, obviously, the 1979 race massacre, where multiracial members of a community were attacked by neo-Nazis and white supremacy. So they were dealing with that, but they were also dealing with the fact that the police, they did this march in 1979 near a housing project. And the response from the community, or from the police and from the law enforcement, was that this thing happened here, we're gonna put enhanced policing on this community, and this is what you get when you protest. And so the leaders of the Truth Commission, of the Greensboro Truth Commission, their response was, well, we are going to figure out a way to shift people's understanding of what happened and who was responsible. So one of the primary purposes of their Truth Commission was to name and say, all right, the protesters weren't responsible, but it's actually the police who connected the KKK and the neo-Nazis and had people killed, and then this community is suffering. And that went on for 20-something odd years in the community, where community members were blamed for what the police had done and what the protesters had legally within their rights to do. And so in that sense, the mission and the vision for them was really like getting the truth out of what really happened in that incident, right? So that there's actually policy that represents the reality that people are experiencing. Or, you know, for instance, in Ferguson, our point was to highlight and disrupt. So number one, to have an alternate space for people to tell their truth without being arrested, right, without all of these like repercussions, but also to bring forth like many of the people who have been brutalized and families of people who've been victimized and killed by police, so that they would have an opportunity to share those stories. And the really like wild part is like, while we had learned all this stuff, and I came to the work from restorative justice, like that was sort of my area of research when we had began these processes. And I remember there being this academic who was saying, well, you all didn't do it right because this is what it's supposed to be like, and this was supposed to look like. And, you know, that's one of the amazing things, and that's what I want to get to here, is that this is your process that you get to define. Even though there's this document there, you all get to come up with a mission and a vision, right, that shapes the direction of your process. I want to like maybe leave it to some questions, and or maybe Eduardo, did you want to say more?
Yeah, I have the impression we need to take a pause, right? And just stretch our legs a little bit. Yeah. Hey, Laura.
So we left with Dave pointing to examples in Greensboro as well as in Ferguson of how they envisioned their truth commissions to look like and the work that they wanted it to be carried out as. The Iowa City Council has passed the resolution, but the resolution is broad. And even though truth commissions last periods of time, 2, 3, some 7 years, I don't know who's committed for 7 years, there's you can never exhaust talking about racism in a place. So thinking about for yourselves as commissioners, collectively, how are you going to narrow the work of this Truth Commission? What is the mission and vision of this particular commission? Will it be motivated by a particular act? Like an incident happened and we want the truth of this incident to be articulated? Or is it thematic? Racism as it relates to law enforcement, racism as it relates to healthcare, or a multitude of things. But finding what that mission and vision is for this particular commission and how you're going to carry that out. So I know that that's going to take some reflection, but even initially, like where you all are thinking and what has come up over the past few hours as you are visioning forward. And V is probably going to lead that conversation because that's how it's scheduled.
Right, thank you. It's like a hot potato. I think that, our facilitated discussion was really going to be more of a reflection. So it is that. You've, heard us talk about some of the tools, some of the ways with you can engage anxiety and discomfort. Obviously, the, talk of Ferguson and how people approach it. And so we wanted to give you all space to think about some questions. And did you have it printed out? Mm-hmm. Yeah. These are they're not special questions, but really the first one is, and we'd like you to either write about it, talk about it, but definitely engage it in whatever way you feel comfortable. But what really has come up for you in this 3.5 hours? Just some initial reflections on our time together so far. Please, Clint.
How do we get across empathy? How do we make sure that we can get empathy throughout this entire city? The issues that certain people are dealing with are not the same, are not any different than the issues that others are dealing with. I feel like we all are traumatized and we're all going through a lot constantly. And in that process, I don't believe anybody's pain is any worse than another. I believe everybody is just shook up. But we have to be able to get that truth out there and make sure that we all understand that we're all hurt. And because we're all hurt, we need to help each other heal. And that's what I feel like our job is really gonna be, is to make sure we get the documentation and show it. Once we show it, then you can empathize a little bit more because you can see facts. Facts are the main thing that need to be put out there, no matter how uncomfortable it can be. And looking at these definitions in this glossary, I really appreciate it. And I feel like each and every single one of these, just like you were saying, is something that we need to tackle one at a time. And maybe the best way to do that would be, well, I want to think on it more. I'm not one that just likes to, I don't like throwing stuff out. I like to sit back, listen, observe, and then from there really come up with better solutions. The one thing that, the movie Sherlock Holmes comes to mind right now, where he says, this mustn't register on an emotional level. Now, I love that line because it's like, this is really emotion driven. This is very hurt. We're hurt. And that's what I feel even in this whole group right here seems like a group that is here for one cause and one only, and that's just to heal and to try to make things a little bit better. But it also, the pain is showing to a certain level and degree. We gotta kind of pull back and realize that on the same team, we can make things work. And in that, I just feel like sitting on this a little bit more and discussing it tomorrow would be a better time, just to give us a little bit more to just absorb it. That's just my own personal opinion with that.
Just to piggyback on kind of what you're talking about, so I guess I'll just kind of speak to my own healing journey, and with the empathy piece. First of all, I guess I kind of feel like all emotions are valid. However you feel, it's valid. We can't tell you you're wrong. You know what I mean? Your response is your response, and we have to listen and let it be. We have to sit with these things, And that's where that uncomfortable part comes in, you know, because you got to sit with anger, you got to sit with sadness, you got to sit with pain. That's where a lot of people want to run away and and they don't want to sit with it. That's hard work. Oh, I can tell you, it is hard work. So giving people that is that safe space, I feel like, is allowing people to literally speak their truth, period. We're not here for judgment. We're not here to tell you that your experience is wrong. They are speaking their truth, and we are, and that's it. And I think as people maybe see that in the community, maybe they'll feel a little safer, like they know they're not going to be judged. They know they're not going to be told they're wrong. They're not going to be attacked. They're just going to be allowed to speak and say what they need to say. And in that, I feel like is healing in itself. There's healing in that in itself. So just kind of.
I learned some good stuff today. I really liked the stuff about, sorry, I'm forgetting the name of the town already. Yeah, Greensboro. I like what they did. I thought that was really cool. And I like that it's like at like a city level, so we have a lot we can look to. So that's really cool. It might even be cool to have somebody from there come here and meet with us. And, you know, and then again, like, so this whole process is very difficult as, you know, a commissioner, because not only are we facilitating for others and trying to figure out as we go, right, but we're also dealing with, you know, the stuff internally because we come from these communities. So, you know, I really think that moving forward, there's going to have to be some kind of, because, you know, we're funneling stuff, right? And that's not easy. So we're going to have some kind of care method, I think, for folks, like maybe counseling, and then just more comfortable, just to be more comfortable in more comfortable spaces. If you're going to be in spaces for long periods, like people need to be comfortable, especially our elders. I think we should take good care of them. Yeah, so otherwise I don't think I can personally keep going. Because like it's honestly, I mean, I don't know if y'all know like the history of this TRC commission, but it has been fraught with like a lot of bullshit. Oops, sorry. Sorry, I forget sometimes. So, you know, and there's even at the last city meeting we were at, I believe somebody got up and said, you know, I think you guys have been abused by the city. And, you know, so there's a lot of rawness in this room. And I think the city is still perpetuating some things right now that literally just came up tonight, which is why we had to leave the room for a minute. And I don't know if they actually want us to succeed. So like, where is the support, right? Like, where is the, you know, okay, so I have always, like, when I do my work, I always imagine like my ancestors behind me, you know, or with me, guiding me. And I kind of just thought like if the city of Iowa City put this together that they wanted to be beside us and guiding us and helping us, but in actuality, that hasn't been the case. So we're going to have to figure out a way to really support everybody here doing this work, whether it's like as a healer or a facilitator or as a commissioner, and like take care of each other. So we're going to have to figure out this budget so we can, you know, have better meals, so we can be in more comfortable spaces, you know, and the city, I don't know, we'll just have to make them we're just going to have to let them know this is what you got to do. You know, you got to take care of yourself before you can take care of others as well, right? Like, how are we going to do that if like we're still dealing with so many of these issues? So I guess those are some thoughts I had tonight. And yeah, I hope that helps moving forward. Anybody else?
Just sitting here thinking about everything that we learned already. I guess I'm just feeling really grateful that we are finally here in this process. A majority of us have been in this for 2 years, and we know that this commission's been around for over 3 years. So it's just a long time coming, and it's so great to get this education. I am also looking forward to when we have more people in the room, not the people that are just dedicated to the cause today, just to learn and really just thinking about how we can create this, I guess, ripple effect, because that's what Eduardo kind of pointed out in the resolution, is how we can make sure that this is teachable and ongoing. And I think from the beginning, just thinking all the different areas that we can touch on is overwhelming and extremely daunting, because this is a small, big city in the state of Iowa, and there's lots of harms that have been perpetuated since the beginning of this area has been claimed by the United States. So just trying to think about how we can really make that big change, throwing the big rock, I guess, and making that big ripple effect so that it can keep going, so that in 10, 20 years from now, we're not thinking, well, that was a great project that happened just that 1 year or two. It's like this is ongoing and we can see a future with it. So that's what I'm thinking about right now.
Just want to make sure all the commissioners felt like they had whatever they wanted to say in terms of reflection. And it's okay if you don't have anything either, if you want to just sit on it too, but wanted to make space for everybody. Yeah. That's great.
I guess you were the one that touched on one of the words that I feel that there's not enough of, and that is empathy. And not everybody has that naturally. You know, it's just like, how do you teach empathy? You know, that's not an easy task, you know, and so that's one thing I would like to think about, you know, how do we do that in this, if we're going to be doing this and people are telling the truth, how do you teach someone who maybe does not have empathy to have it so that they can actually understand walking in somebody else's shoes and seeing it from somebody else's eyes? You know, and that goes from everybody. I mean, in all aspects. You know, what was it like for them when, in that moment, when they're talking about that? You know, can we feel that? Can we understand, and all of a sudden rethink of a situation that we may have thought about it? You know, that's what I'm thinking about right now. So.
The facilitator end, thank you for this moment, which, as the chair has said, it's been long in coming. Today was more about, for me, learning than really doing learning. Just adding more about when I joined I chose to join the Truth and Reconciliation. I had some vague idea, but after the 6-week course that we went through, it made me not feel like just moving around in the dark. And today has pushed that further in learning as a commissioner what is in front of me. But I can't say that, oh, now I'm good, I'm ready to be out there. No, it has brought out really, really what is ahead. It's not wanting comfort, that's what I would want. But even as we went through the last 3 hours, I don't know, I've lost track of time. It's not. It isn't. And it's not a surprise because a lot of us here have been on the end of being or struggling with this oppression. So it's familiar, it's painful, and the last 3 hours have reminded me it's the beginning of the next 7 or 8 months, more of that. So yes, in my mind, and because this has always been there, I said for me, it started with my grandmother's parents, and then my mother. And then I come to Iowa City. And then I joined the Africanness that came before me here involuntarily, and still trying to get off that struggle. And even when I think about it, even my body moves in struggle, and my mind is also moving. So, yeah, I've remembered to brace myself for the next 7 months and to go with the flow of the struggle and go through it and go through the pain. And for sure, I know positive things will come out of this, because already, even getting to this moment, for me, I don't wait for the when we get done and close the documents to clap. I clap for every success of the day, that even the Truth and Reconciliation Commission is still existing. Because I remember one of the listening posts that we had, I did ask publicly, I did ask Mayor Teague, are we checking a box in going out there to ask people to talk? And at one point, it looked like the TRC was going to die, because I did ask the same question again to the council. Is this just checking a box? Is this just a way, was it a way to kill the protests? And having the commission, was it just to be there, kill the protests, and we're good, things as usual, racial injustice, things go on. So as we went through the 3 hours, even as I'm experiencing pain, because old wounds are open, some that have passed through me have been passed down, and also through being a researcher of racism, being a teacher, or fighting social injustice. I've been thinking about all that, the successes, and being an optimist, and also knowing for a fact that we've succeeded even to be here and to be sitting, and to even having struggled for more than 2 years to get the council to pass the budget to allow us to even be sitting here. For me, that is a success. And because documentation is also taking place as we go on, for me, that is a success. And even being part of that as we continue. And even as I haven't figured it all out, and I wouldn't have figured it out even by the time we get done. I've lived long enough in the world to know that there's so much out there to figure out, and I don't have enough time I wouldn't live long enough to figure it all out, and I don't know whether anybody has ever done that. So, I mean, I wouldn't even try and be ambitious. So, that's what this evening has brought back to me, and I've checked in with myself every day. Do I still want to continue being part of that work and inviting others who are really so afraid of coming forward? Do I want to continue inviting others to come forward and we continue doing this work? And I answer myself and I tell myself, yes, I'm still going to be part of this. I'm still volunteering and calling others to bring their time, which they really don't have because they're busy, especially with doing jobs that pay their bills. But even tonight, after going through the 3 hours, I tell myself, I want to continue. I want to be part of this, and I want to continue asking others, especially those who have been part of the oppression, please come, since it should be, I wish I had a magic wand to wave and tell the oppressor, it's really your responsibility to work on this. You're even the one who knows where you oppress. Do the right thing. Don't you go telling the whole world that is what is supposed to happen. Why are you doing it? Why are you even making me give you evidence that you're oppressing me? But, well, I'm here and I have to do and ask others, come, we join together and we work on removing the yoke that is on us, do our bit, and see how far we're going to move it, to move that walk or that yoke off ourselves. You can see I use a lot of words to say what I've done with the 3 hours of being here. And I will stop, not because words have stopped coming out of me, but because I need to stop.
Yeah, this work is an extreme labor of love because while sitting here for the last 3 hours on this chair, just pushing against my back and my scoliosis, I was like, if I didn't care for this community, I would have left. I really would have. And like that brings me to like the point that this is heavy work and everybody in this room has been directly affected. And something that I've been working on mastering is the art of removal. When this work becomes too much, if you need to, honestly, don't be afraid to step away. Because again, this is not, oh my gosh, sorry. This is not your burden to bear. The harm that has been done to you is not for you to constantly be fixing. And if you removing yourself is what keeps you safe, do that. Don't wait till you have given everything, because that is all we've done our entire lives is we give and we give and we give till one day we're just dry walking skeletons. Don't wait until they have sucked all of that out of you. It is not your job to stay here. You know, it's really been sitting with me, the fact that the community is not taking care of its people. We're sitting here for hours, and like, you're right. That was not even half of what they could have done, and the truth of it is, the community did not purchase any of that. We had, as Think Peace, had to step in and be like, you can't have people sitting for 3 hours with no kind of food, with no kind of beverage, because because they didn't even take that into account. Until they start seeing us as people, until they start seeing you as humans, don't be afraid to step away. Because if they cannot take accountabilities for the bodies that they're hurting, it is not your job to sit there and fix it. But I am so grateful for everybody in this room taking the time, putting your spirit, your body, your mind at risk for more harms so that you can help further better the community, fix things that, once again, I will continue to say, you have no business fixing. So thank you to everybody, and it's really been such a pleasure just sitting here and like learning from everybody.
I just want to reiterate what you were saying, because this really is heavy work, because not only do we deal with oppression out in the streets, it has been so deeply ingrained that we deal with it in our homes, we deal with it in our families, we deal with it in our own communities, we deal with it with ourselves. We self-destruct. We have a narrative in our brains. So it is extremely, I mean, we're getting hit everywhere you turn all day long. So I just want to reiterate what you were saying.
Yeah, I mean, the revolution is rest as well. I firmly believe that we do have to take care of ourselves and of each other and remind ourselves that we are sacred. We are sacred. It is a fact. We are a miracle. We are magical humans, and all that we bring and all that we do. And to Lois Grace, your point, we are helpers. I mean, it really, I see that in every single person here that I know and don't know. You know, they always say, look to the helpers. Well, we also need to look to each other, you know, and we need to reflect to each other. Hey, you know what? If you need to step back, I got it. Because there's going to be times when I need to step back too. I firmly believe that. And so I want to just absolutely reiterate that. It is my, you know, what I would love to offer is some of that healing space, is some of that like restorative practices for each other, for ourselves, for our communities, for our homes, relatives, you know, sisters, brothers, mothers, whoever that is, you know, that is, it's sacred work, and we absolutely can do that together. I want to recognize it has been a long night. You all have given so much. We certainly honor you in this space. Thank you for your reflections. I've copied down some of it because I felt like, you know, maybe in a couple days you might want to look back on it, or, you know, use it to your own ability. It's not to share with anybody else. We will give all of this to you all. It's for your own use. And with that, I would like to ask T, we had talked about, you know, doing some sort of closing. That's kind of where we're at in the night, if people are okay with that. I think people are feeling pretty ready to be there, so I'll pass that along.
Yeah, I'll do. When we close down Friday, I'm gonna bring my sage, my feather, and gonna cleanse us, send us off in a good way. You know, and tonight, you know, listening to everybody here, that, you know, that's the key. We gotta listen and learn to listen. That was back in the 1960s, but back in my day. But now, you know, tonight I say it in a serious way, but teasing way. You know, I got my ping pong night, I got my date night, you know, I got my casino night, I got my movie night. We're all busy, but I could be busy every night if I made the choice to be busy every night. I got so many children and grandchildren that I try to divide my time and pay attention to what prioritize what's important. So, V already said it, sacred work. This is what we do, sacred work. Creator God, He calls upon us to give our gifts to other people. If you're around me, I sound like a broken record. People can give my talk. I say the same things over and over. So my new title, and I'm sitting here thinking about it, Winter Vegas Casino, got my shirt on, has Father and Mother Sacred on the back. But Winter Vegas Casino, I'm in a contract with them. Instead of having, no disrespect to my mental health practitioners or anything like that, but they're gonna have me come out there as they create a job description for me. My new title out there is Spirituality Empowerment Coach. People that make mistakes, they make mistake. Okay, I'm sorry. Sorry V, sorry Ann, you're fired. We'll let you go. But as a spirituality empowerment coach, or even as a basketball coach, I still coach basketball. So as a coach, I'm trying to empower you, motivate you to change. What's in the past is in the past. We can't change it. So So even when I do my trainings, I put in my zip drive. I always tease people, if you want me to come and give a talk, I plug in my zip drive. It's going to cost you. But it's going to cost you. But when I put it in, my title comes up: Spirituality Empowerment / Empowerment through Spirituality. I say it, people walk around with a broken spirit, a broken heart. We see it every day. So over here then, we have to warrior up. However you want to say it, I have a program. We got to warrior up. We got to stop feeling sorry for ourselves. Self-pity, self-centeredness, me, myself, and I. We got to get through it. Like I said, in my office, you ever come to my office, I got a spirit mirror. It's a big round mirror. People, as a probation officer, they lie right to my face. And when I catch them lie, go over there, look in that mirror, just slap the hell out of yourself, because you're lying to yourself. You got to warrior up. So down here then too, we all see things through our own lens. I got bifocals, I got implants. See, I can't even see. But we see things through our own lens, our environment, living on the res, in the hood, in the ghetto. We see things through our own lens, and a lot of time, as a probation officer, I was a probation officer in the res. So a lot of times when the OGs, the old res guys, they come over, put me in jail. I'll go to jail, because this mental health therapist is never going to relate to me. He's never going to understand me. And so they will. They'll go to jail. They'll go to jail instead of going to see a therapist. A therapist, no disrespect to him, but they give you a label: antisocial personality, alcohol dependent. In our ways, my Indian name is Akichita Hochita. It means warrior, soldier, helping people. But then you get labeled, and then a lot of times we get prejudged. So, so right here then, so that's through our own lens. Heartbreak, pain, traumatized, empathy. That's what I wrote down when, what came up on our time together. We talked about all those things. And I say it every day, our feelings and emotions, in a snap of fingers, we snap and we react. You might kill somebody, you might kill yourself. Say hurtful words that we can't take back. So that's important to recognize that. Fact-finding, truth-telling, reconciliation, that's what we're here for. The theory of change, confront and recognizing there is a problem of racial injustice. Sometimes, I say it like this, sometimes what's right in front of us, people can't see it because they make a choice not to see it unless it's right in their face. So that's kind of what I kind of come with tonight. That anger, bitterness, we have to let it go. We have to have forgiveness. People can't forgive and they can't forget. I swear to God, don't get me started on that, but they can't do it. They can't forgive and they can't forget. And what I heard tonight here is that, God bless, the city council, any tribal council, what are they? They're the decision makers. They're either going to be a blessing to the people or they're going to be a burden. So for me, in my walk of life, people see me in many different lives, but I'm here to serve the people. Our leaders back home, our native ways, we eat last. People eat first. If you was on the res, we'd be eating fried bread, we'd be eating soup, corn soup. We'd be feasting. We wouldn't be fam. Well, my stomach would be growling right now. I'm teasing. So that's kind of what I brought tonight here. So Friday, Thursday night, I'm going to shut it down with the prayer and the smudging and the cleansing, because again, in a flash, in a moment, our feelings and emotions get so intense because we love our people. We want to protect our people. And for your relatives that travel, and then could buy me some White Castles or something over here. So you guys traveled because you made a sacrifice. You made a sacrifice to come over here and serve us over here. So I'll say about that much. All my relations say, Mitakwison. I mean, we're all related. I hope.
I just wanted to say thank you to like the people who came just from the community because you guys are taking time out of your lives, and I hope we see even more faces.
Oh, is there some? And the people on Zoom. Okay, and if there's nothing else, I'm going to move on to the last agenda item, which is public comments. So I would just like to open up. What do you say?
On item number 4.
We are now on item number.
Public comment on item number 4.
Oh, public comments on item number 4. So is anyone online who's been with us that would like to comment on tonight's discussions? Please raise your hand. Is there anyone in the room with us? Please go ahead and go to the mic.
Yeah, I'll try to keep it brief, especially in case anyone else wants to talk. But this just reminds me a lot of dialectical behavior therapy in a good way. Like, everybody here is coming with their own stories, their own perspectives, their own goals. And this first meeting is everybody putting themselves out there to try to synthesize what the shared goal and mission is. I feel like everybody who's been here has been putting themselves out there. It's not easy. Frankly, you know, I'm kind of glad that things started off kind of tense because it meant that everybody was being real with each other. Like, you know, there's so many ways that things can go wrong in the middle of a really critical moment. And like, this is just the start. This is exactly the time for things to be tense when people don't know each other too well, don't have a working relationship. I guess just brief anecdote. My son's mom and I, like, when we met each other, when we had our kid, we barely knew each other at all. A terrible relationship. When we broke up, it was nasty. But all it took was like one mediation session before we stopped going, like, what do you mean by that? Because like suddenly we did know what the other person meant. Even though we're speaking English together, we didn't know what each other meant when we were talking, right? And now we're like super good friends. And it's not because we're dating, it's because we're like parenting a kid together. We're doing an entirely different dynamic. So I guess just like, there's all sorts of ways that all of you can work with each other. You know, I'm just really glad that this is happening after 3 years. It's so inspiring to see, even if, you know, we weren't all marching in the streets just for this, especially for it to happen 3 years later. I agree that the city has done a lot of work to slow this down, and y'all are persistent to the point that it's happening anyway. So like, just keep on going. Hell yeah, guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the public that would like to speak?
Sorry, guys, I came rather late.
If you could go to the microphone, please.
Yeah, sorry. My name is Amos, and from the community here. I came on behalf of the African Associations, and this is my second time, and I keep every time, like my sister just said, every time I come along, and it humbles me. Yeah, and but I want to really, really thank you very much because the task you're doing is very complex, very amorphous, like Gonzalez. Yeah, he said, he gave us those 3 items there. They are very, very difficult. I was trying to synthesize them in my brain, and they were very difficult. So I'm wondering, you, the commissioners, how are you really dealing with this? And I really sympathize with you, but your dedication, persistence, keeps me moving, and I believe something good is gonna come out of the thing. So I just want to congratulate you, keep doing what you're doing. I know some people, you might be thinking that nobody cares, but me, I care, they care. There are people probably, I don't know how many, maybe somebody can monitor how many are watching the videos, your discussion. They see the struggles you go through. Very, very difficult. Even students doing PhDs and other things in a class, if you give them this, they will be having headaches. I've been in those kind of classes. Very, very difficult. But we still have to move on. And just a few areas that maybe could be more challenging, I'm giving you more tasks, maybe me too, is how you are going to approach the public, we guys on the other side. Yeah. How to communicate the mandates that you have there. Because when we are there in arts, in either in a video, whatever, talking, that person you are interfacing with sometimes find it very, very difficult to interpret those parameters, those 3 things, items that Eduardo talked about. So that's something that we might want to think about earlier. Yeah, they are not going to be clear ones, no methodologies, no theory, no nothing, or paradigms that we can use. But I think any of us will try to use different approaches, what works with different communities. My brother, there are different approaches in which you approach different communities. There's no one particular one. And if we are not very careful, we might maybe sometimes miss. They're not going to be mad, but they're just like my community. They're just going to go fall back and say, well, I don't know what I'm going to get out of this. I think you're just doing something for the city for this and this. So you are truthful, you know that in your heart. But what about them? Yeah. So the language, I think the first topic was about the language, the politics and the language has to be well thought of. There's not going to be one, but maybe that's our task as group leaders, to train our people that when these other commissioners are coming, they are really open-handed, with an open heart, and so that they can really, because they are very suspicious. There's a lot of mistrust. Yeah, that's a word that today, maybe it is in the glossary there. Yeah, that is something we deal with every day. Even now when I'm going to be driving home, maybe I keep looking my back because there's a lot of mistrust. Somebody will say, oh, is that one? What is he doing there? Yeah. So that's a big deal. So even you might face a lot of that, but that's going to be out there. But I think positively we'll get out, go through it. Yeah. But I'm really pleased. Yeah, I've learned a lot today, so I think it's going to get better as time goes by. And the fact that you have allowed us here to be here today, to talk, I think this was meant for you commissioners, but I think somebody insisted, or a group of you insisted that we come. And we were watching from the other how you're struggling with that, and I really appreciate that you agreed that we also be part of you, because if you don't allow us to interface with you, those guys will be seeing you as imposers. Yeah, they just see you, these are people imposed or told to come to our group to do this and this. But when you interface with us, maybe they are watching too, and I say that, like I'm telling you right now, then we start to know that we are in this, all of us together. Yeah. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you so much. Is there anyone else in the public that would like to give public comment? Well, if there's no one else, then I move that we adjourn.